Hey everybody, it's Zach at Happy Hollow. Every living thing needs energy to survive. Plants, for example, rely on soil, water, and sun to get their energy. Animals rely on plants as well as other animals to get their energy. Today we're going to talk about how the great horned owl gets the energy it needs to survive. This is a food web. A food web shows how plants and animals in an environment are all connected in order to help them survive. Like I mentioned before, all living things need energy in order to survive, and a food web is a great illustration of how plants and animals get the energy they need to survive. So this one focuses on the great horned owl that we're talking about today. So that's at the top of our food web here. And below the owl are a bunch of different animals and plants, and the connections that you see through the arrows is the direction that the energy travels through these plants and animals in our food web. So the owl is at the very top because there are no natural predators for our great horned owl. No other animals are going to try to eat it. So this web shows how the owl gets its energy from the things below it. So let's follow some of our lines to see how the owl could get its energy. So let's start with our owl, and we'll follow this line right here, which goes down to the squirrel. So the owl eats the squirrel, which gets its energy from the acorn. Let's follow another arrow down. Start our owl, follow it down. And this one goes to our cute little rabbit here, which would get its energy from the grass. Let's follow one more here. So owl, follow this one down. This goes down to a bird. It looks like a robin, which would get its energy from this snake right here. So like you can see, everything in our food web is connected and gets its energy from something else in order to survive. When our owl friend here catches a mouse in the woods, it uses its talons to snatch it up and kill it instantly, takes it back to its nest, then uses its hooked, pointed beak to pick the mouse up and swallow the animal whole. Once it gets it swallowed, the mouse passes through 2 stomachs in the owl's system where it's digested. However, there are parts that the owl just can't digest, the bones and the fur from the mouse. So those parts are formed to what's known as a pellet, and when it's fully formed, the owl regurgitates it and it comes out and forms what is called an owl pellet. So that's what we're going to dig into next, is an owl pellet. This is our owl pellet right here. It's about, 2.5, 3 inches long. This particular one probably came from a great horned owl because of its size. And again, it's the undigestible remains from whatever prey the owl ate before it regurgitated this pellet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some tweezers to dig into it and see what sort of skeletal remains are inside and set those aside, and then try to figure out what sort of animal it was this owl ate before it regurgitated this pellet. Let's dive in. Oh man. So I can already see that other than a bunch of fur here, there are a lot of bones as well. It looks like this might be a skull right here. Cool. Well, that's neat. We got a skull, it looks like, right here of something pretty small. I'm just going to set that aside. Got a skull. I'm going to keep digging around. I see more stuff. Maybe a leg bone or something. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in here. Tiny little things too. Maybe ribs and things like that that are in here. So here's what we're left with after going through that owl pellet. Here's the pile of fur. It's actually a lot of fur that was tightly compacted into that pellet. There's surely more bones in there that I just didn't find because they're so small, but came out with what looks like 2 skulls, some jaws, some leg bones, and some ribs. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get a sheet to help me try to figure out what sort of animals may have been in here. So I've gotten out my handy bone sorting chart and tried to match up the bones that I found in the pellet with the illustrations of the bones that are on this chart. And I think I found some that are basically exact matches. So it looks like our animals in the pellet fall under the category of rodents, most likely a mouse or a rat. I think the skull was like a dead giveaway. It looks just like the rodent skull that's illustrated here, but also the hips, pretty much the exact same, as well as the hind legs and the ribs. So probably a combination of a couple of mice in there since we found the 2 skulls. So apparently this owl had a really good hunting night before it coughed up these pellets. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks again for joining me and talking about owl food webs.